Good afternoon again. I'm very excited to be here. I'd like to thank the Autism Science Foundation for their generous support of this study and that of all the awardees for this year. I'm extremely grateful for this opportunity to be mentored by the super researcher, a super author, super administrator, just all around super woman, the amazing Dr. Rhea Paul out of the Child Study Center at Yale School of Medicine. Our study will be examining the efficacy of a narrative-based intervention designed to examine the conversational skills of school-age children with autism ASD. These increases in their pragmatic language skills will be measured by a variety of assessments, including assessments designed to target those specific presuppositional skills that we'll be looking at during the intervention, other standard measures of language, social skills and reading skills, as well as parent and teacher ratings of social behavior and observational ratings of conversational behavior. So what has led to this study? As we know, one of the major symptoms of ASD is an impairment in communication. There is variation across the areas of language in terms of how they're affected, yet there is consistency in that pragmatic language is usually affected. So even for individuals who have average or above average cognitive skills, they may have large lexicons, intact syntax, we still see these issues with pragmatics. So the American Speech Language Hearing Association defines pragmatics as the effective and appropriate use of language to accomplish social goals, manage turns and topics in conversation, and express appropriate degrees of politeness, awareness of social roles, and recognition of others' conversational needs. We see a variety of pragmatic deficits in ASD, including issues with turn taking, communicative acts, difficulties with providing relevant and adequate responses during conversation, issues with perspective taking and producing appropriate questions, as well as cohesive narratives. These difficulties are not found across every area of conversational skill, but most significantly affect the amount of information provided, topic maintenance, as well as the ability to respond to the cues of conversational partners and deal with communicative breakdowns, as well as engage in exchanges that may not necessarily be predictable. These difficulties with information management lead to what linguists refer to as presupposition. So pragmatic presupposition has to do with the relationship between utterances and context. And it involves the ability to predict what listeners already know, what they're thinking about, as well as what they wish to know when deciding what you'd like to convey during conversation. So we tie in the narrative skills into this in that much of what goes into understanding stories has to do with understanding the internal states of characters. So the idea is to set up this narrative-based intervention that allows the children to examine and understand what drives the characters in these narratives in order for them to examine and understand what drives the characters in their daily lives and tailor their communication accordingly. When we look specifically at narrative skills with children with ASD, we again see similar patterns with issues with identifying internal states of the characters within the narratives, as well as inferring about the causal relationships and building upon those within narratives. One thing that is known about the intervention for pragmatic language skills is that the intervention needs to target those specific pragmatic language skills rather than consist of a more generalized social skills intervention. There really is a paucity of literature out there that looks specifically at using narrative-based intervention for increasing pragmatic language skills. This particular study used narrative-based intervention just to increase language, not specifically pragmatic language, but I included it just to emphasize the idea that the literature supporting this particular study is a bit piecemeal, but we'll be contributing to the larger literature. So we have this one particular study, and in this study, after narrative-based intervention, the brain responses of these children with specific language impairment actually were more comparable to that of their typically developing peers. And then in another narrative-based intervention, that this one specifically was designed to increase pragmatic language skills. This one was a very small case study. There were 3 boys ages about 7 to 11. They used a narrative-based intervention, but what was amazing about the study was that they used the narrative after a few weeks. These were boys with ASD, but lower functioning. After a few weeks of intervention, there were increases in spontaneous commenting, initiation of joint attention, shared affect, and these boys, through a play context, actually began to spontaneously expand their narratives. Our hypotheses include that intervention using narrative context to improve skills in presupposition will lead to increases in pragmatic language skills, and that changes in patterns of brain activity in response to presuppositional tasks before versus after intervention will correlate with the measures of behavioral response to intervention. Our participants will be ages 9 to 12 and will have nonverbal reasoning scores of at least 80 on the DOS, and will be verbally fluent. We'll use a group treatment model, 2 groups of at least 6 children per group. As you can see, the format will be that both groups will be assessed. One group will go into treatment. The participants will be randomly assigned either into a treatment group or waitlist group. The waitlist group will serve as the controls. Then they eventually will go into treatment themselves, and then there will be post-assessment as well as maintenance assessment. The program will take place, the actual treatment will take place for 10 weeks, twice a week for 1.5 hours per session. And the maintenance will follow in 12 weeks. So the intervention will target 12 specific presuppositional skills, and it will involve the use of classic children's literature in which the participants will identify examples of the application of presuppositional skills. The importance will be highlighted, and it will be demonstrated how the skill can be applied in the literature in order to help them understand events. And the program will incorporate cognitive behavioral approaches and a bunch of really exciting activities, really to keep them engaged and give them the opportunity to do it, and so that'll be easier translated into their daily lives. As I said, a variety of assessments will be used, including an electrophysiological task that the participants will have the option of opting into. It will be an inferencing task that will be used in conjunction with another lab, Haskins lab at Yale. We hope to get lots of wonderful information. The study's set to begin this summer, and we are looking forward to giving you an update in San Diego next year. I'd like to again thank Dr. Rhea Paul, Dr. Nicole Landy out of Haskins Lab at Yale University, as well as the entire team of the Laboratory of Developmental Communication Disorders, and especially those members here today, Dr. Maisa Akbar back there, and future doctors, Lauren Berkowitz and Allison Lee, as well as the entire Child Study Center at Yale School of Medicine. And again, thank you to the Autism Science Foundation for your generous funding, and thank you all for your attention.